Welcome to Real Time Review. I'm your host, Jesse Nussman. With me, as always, fellow Atlanta film critic Jason Evans. Jason, we have one of the bigger movies of the year to talk about this week. We have a Marvel movie to talk about.
I mean, it was bigger like a month ago or so.
Right.
The projections, the box office projections on this keep on going downhill.
Sure.
There is superhero fatigue is in full malaise right now, my friend.
So what you're telling me is this might have been a poor decision for us to program an entire episode around, but we'll figure it out. Obviously, this movie is bringing together kind of three of Marvel's superheroes.
Well, you should say it's the Marvels.
It is the Marvels.
Yes.
And I think Disney would like to think it is a Marvel of a movie. I think we might disagree on whether it is, but it's obviously bringing back Brie Larson as Captain Marvel for the first time since Avengers Endgame, and having her cross paths with the character of Monica Rambeau from the WandaVision TV series. I was trying to think of which one that was. And then the Miss Marvel character that got her own TV series. And you know,
you go first. Go first.
Let me go first,
and then I'll jump in because we disagree on this.
We disagree.
Yeah.
I got to be honest. I think this is a bad movie, and there's been, I think, a lot of hand-wringing about the state the Marvel Cinematic Universe is in at the moment. They seem to be in a bit of a down slope. This movie, I want to be clear, it is not sort of like a train wreck disaster movie, but I do think it is the kind of like bad movie that is just sort of like empty at its center. This is a movie that it feels like is sort of contorting itself in all directions and sort of bending over backwards to connect itself to 4 different TV series, 3 different movies. And I feel like we've just reached this point in the sort of the larger Marvel project where I think they've lost track a little bit of kind of what worked about these movies. I think the mistake Hollywood was making was thinking that like the success of the Marvel movies was all about interconnectedness, but really it was about these sort of very clearly defined characters that were very relatable and that audiences could kind of gravitate towards, and seeing those characters come up again and again. But I don't get that feeling with this movie. I still don't quite get Captain Marvel as a character. I don't get sort of the relationship between her and these 2 new characters that we're bringing in. There's so much kind of planet hopping and, you know, intergalactic destruction that just kind of gets tossed off and doesn't mean anything. But this movie is working so hard to, you know, connect itself into all these different previous Marvel properties and set up other ones, and it just sort of felt like kind of an empty exercise to me in a way.
Okay, you've had your turn.
I've had my turn.
My turn now. I thought it was funny.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it had a lot of fun. It was zany. To me, it felt a lot like the best of the Guardians of the Galaxy's films. I want to be clear. It has an awful ending. I don't understand the villain. I don't understand the villain's powers. Newsflash, Marvel has a villain problem. I mean, that's been going on for a while with Marvel.
That's nothing new.
Other than Loki and Thanos, like every other Marvel villain kind of sucks.
Mm-hmm.
This movie's villain kind of sucks. But I laughed out loud multiple times in this film. It is worth noting, we saw it in a theater full of our film critic friends who are very skeptical about Marvel, and there was a ton of laughter during this movie. If you just sit back and sort of let the zaniness wash over you, I think the movie is very, very enjoyable. Again, the ending is just bizarre. It involves a fight that I didn't understand what was going on in the fight.
Is this also a movie to you that it feels like, I mean, this is one of the shorter Marvel movies, but I kind of get this weird feeling like there's sort of a giant chunk of it missing. There's sort of like weird moments in this movie with that it's kind of hard to put into words because it's sort of, you notice it in the editing where all of a sudden it's like people are one place and then within a couple of seconds they're like someplace else. I'm not talking about like teleportation. There is teleportation. Which is a lot of teleportation,
yes.
But you know, there just sort of seems to be kind of like a scatterbrained aspect to the way this movie is put together and the way that it's constantly just like, all right, we need to move on to the next thing and then move on to the next thing. And there isn't kind of like a moment to just sort of breathe and kind of like take in the wonder, or, you know, get to know these characters and see them interacting with each other.
No, I agree that the characters we don't get a lot of time to really develop the characters and their teamwork. There's one nice montage where they're learning how to control their powers together, which I did enjoy. But again, to me, the thing that was fun was the zaniness of it. There's a scene, and I don't think anyone will consider this a spoiler. It's not a huge plot point. There's a scene involving a planet where everyone on the planet speaks through song.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really funny, and I enjoyed it. Brie Larson breaks out in song. People may forget that Brie Larson is able to sing. She sang wonderfully in Scott Pilgrim versus the World. Like she's a really good she's a good singer, and it's really, really funny. I enjoyed it. And look, the Iman Vellani, I believe is how she pronounces her name.
She's easily the standout of the movie.
Yeah, she plays the teenage Miss Marvel.
Right.
She and the cat, they're cats in this film. She and the cats save the movie. Because Brie Larson's character I found and the Monica Rambeau character, I was like, get rid of her. I didn't enjoy her at all. But Miss Marvel, Iman Vellani, whatever, I can't pronounce her name, she does an incredible job in this movie. She is the audience's avatar because she's like a fanboy. She's like so in love with the fact that she's now got superpowers and the such. I think it's what all of us sort of, how we might react if that happened to us. And I thought that really works. Is it essential? No. Is the ending good? No. Is it worth seeing? Is it a good time? Are you going to laugh? I say yes.
I maybe, but I still have to come at this as someone who I hadn't seen a lot of the TV shows. I found sections of this kind of like really hard to follow, in that how much it was sort of relying on kind of your investment in things from the TV show. I think you have three really charismatic actors, kind of three really charismatic actresses at the center of this movie, and kind of just sort of wishing like give them more to do, give them something more to play. I mean, Brie Larson, like this is one of the more baffling characters to me in the Marvel universe, in that Brie Larson is this actress that's capable of such sort of like subtle human emotion and
Look,
can be so
Room
like
is one of my favorite movies of the past decade.
she has this ability to just have this very like approachable aura about her, and yet they have her playing like this godlike being that it like the only defining characteristic is just like she's indestructible and can do everything, and it just sort of seems like a disservice to an actress like her. And this, maybe the thing I'm getting at is this just sort of felt like another one of the Marvel projects that just kind of felt like wheels spinning and sort of like connecting the dots, but without sort of like, you know, find a way for me as someone who, look, I like superhero movies, I like Marvel movies, I love the Spider-Man movie that was earlier this year, the animated one, but give me a reason to care. Give me a reason to care about this world and these people. If you're having all of these sort of planets imploding on each other and sort of multi-dimensional things crashing into each other, like give me a sense of like what that means for the characters and what that means for those larger worlds.
I'm not going to fight you on. I'm just going to say I laughed, and if a movie makes me laugh, thumbs up from me.
So the second movie we have to talk about is, interestingly enough, from another Marvel graduate.
Yeah.
It's Taika Waititi's new film, Next Goal Wins, which is sort of throwback sports comedy. It has a very, I think, kind of like tried and true plot for like many sort of kind of
I literally
underdog
wrote those
sports
words.
comedies.
Tried and true sports
Right,
comedy.
right.
Yeah.
I want to say, because I feel like there's a way people could toss it off as just like, oh, it's cliched, and it's like, no, I feel like we use this plot of like the underdog team that can't win, and then the one like curmudgeon-y coach that gets brought in to kind of redeem himself and redeem the team.
It's Bad News Bears and every film that's followed.
It's Bad News Bears. It's Cool Runnings. It's Slapshot. It's, you know, you can name a dozen different movies that it is. I think for this one, your mileage is going to vary as an audience as to like how connected you are to Taika Waititi's humor. I'm someone who's a little bit kind of like hit and miss with him. It's really interesting, kind of like the career trajectory he's had in the last 5 years, going from kind of like indie darling to all of a sudden like a household name, basically, who is like
because of Thor Ragnarok.
Right. Yeah. He's worked in the Marvel universe. He's worked in the Star Wars universe. He's won an Oscar. I think in some movies, his humor really works for me. Here, I just found it very grating. There's a performance by Michael Fassbender in it that we need to kind of get into.
So let me jump in and I'll say this. Again, I laughed in this movie. I enjoy the underdog sports story and found myself captivated in the final half hour when it's all coming together for all of them. And the whole theater was cheering and the whole theater was laughing and gasping at various moments during that ending. That said, God, Michael Fassbender's, this is up there with The Snowman, and I'm trying to think of like the worst performances of his career. I have no idea what he's doing in this movie. The movie focuses on him, even though I thought the American Samoan soccer players are far more interesting, and we barely get anything of them. Like, why are we spending all our time with this guy who's a jerk and not all that interesting?
I think you know, we talked about Fassbender a couple episodes ago with the Killer, this David Fincher movie that he's in, and how kind of perfectly cast he is as this ice cold assassin, and just his intensity and physicality as an actor really lending itself to that role. Here, his intensity as an actor, I feel like kind of overpowers the movie.
Oh, it's totally overbearing, yeah.
To the point of like, you need, for that role to work, you need someone who can be kind of like both curmudgeon-y while also they can like weave together a bit of humor in there. Like, you brought up the Bad News Bears. I feel like what they're going for is like Walter Matthau in that movie.
But Walter Matthau's a great comedic actor.
Exactly.
And I don't know that Michael Fassbender can pull that off.
Yeah, and it's...
In fact, we now have evidence that he cannot.
No, 'cause the entire time you're watching it, you're just like, this guy's just a jerk, and like I kind of don't want to spend that much time.
Yeah.
Me personally, with a comedy, I was way more interested in the supporting characters of the American Samoan soccer players who have.
We really only get to know one of them.
Right, the kind of coach / president of the team. And then there's a couple other smaller players that we get to spend time with, including one who is a trans woman who plays on the team. But the whole time I was just like, why am I spending time with this Fassbender character who just is not funny, is not charismatic, is kind of just a jerk to everyone? And you can see him trying to be funny. And towards the end of the movie, I think my other big problem with it is I sometimes have a problem when Waititi swings between kind of like cartoonish goofiness and kind of big sincere drama. And this movie makes an attempt to do that kind of big swing late in the movie when we learn some more things about the Michael Fassbender character that I thought really just sort of like airplane crash into a mountain, like did not work and sort of like killed the vibe of the movie.
Look, with both of these films that we're talking about today, you're saying negative things. I'm trying to be a little more positive. Mm-hmm. They're both flawed films, but they're both films that are funny, that I did enjoy watching them. I wasn't bored. I wasn't looking at my watch while I was watching them. And I think there's some value, speaking specifically about this film, there's certainly value in that tried and true sports cliche that we enjoy, that we get taken along for the ride. Yeah, this movie struggles in the middle. Yeah, Michael Fassbender's performance is just like, I don't know what the heck he's doing out there.
No.
But again, I laughed. I was caught up in the final, as opposed to the final battle, the final contest, the final match.
Yes.
Yeah. And I came out of the movie mostly with a smile on my face. So, is this a film where you can wait and watch it on streaming? Yeah, probably. But it's still, I think, not a terrible movie.
Well, that about wraps us up for this episode. Jason and I are going to go into the parking lot and beat this out in a boxing match and continue to scream at each other. But stay tuned for more future episodes.